students and scholars, teachers and trainers, professors and professionals, listeners and learners, those who are listening, watching, English literature, language and grammar. Now you are listening Thomas Hardy, 1840 to 1928. Thomas Hardy, who belongs to the Victorian age. We study Hardy as the compromiser of 19th and 20th century period. 19th and 20th century period was the period of Industrial Revolution. Born on June 2nd, 1840 at Higher Bocampton, a village near Dorchester, Thomas Hardy was the son of master mason. At the time of his birth, he was so frail that the doctor pronounced him dead. Because of a vigorous slapping from the family nurse, he was called back to a life that was to last almost 90 years. His father was a kindly man, very fond of music, a violinist and a singer, much in demand at various social functions. He was not very ambitious. Mrs. Hardy was more ambitious. She came of a family very fond of reading, a sympathetic, encouraging woman with a remarkable store of memory. In later years, Thomas Hardy turned frequently to his parents for happiness. As an old man, he used to say how much he owed to the wisdom and guidance of his mother and to the reading she suggested. He also received his father's love of music. He studied Latin, French and German from 1849 to 1506 to 1856 and read novels of Ainsworth and Dumas. He joined his father's employer, John Hicks, an architect and church restored. He saw the public persecution of Martha Brown outside Dorchester Country Golf. He studied Greek dramatists and Darwin's original. At 22, he went to London. He joined the staff of a famous young architect named Arthur Blomfield, a man of great kindness and insight and a keen musician. In his spare time, he read widely. The writings of Huxley and Miff made a deep impression on him. In 1865, he started writing poems and sent them to publishers, but they were rejected. He started writing his first novel, The Poor Man and the Lady, but it was not published. He began writing his second novel, Desperate Remedies. At this stage, he met Emma Lavinia Gifford, a 29-year-old lovely person, very fond of riding and jealous in her work for the Paris. Her energy and her deep interest in books excited Hardy. They became great friends. They got married in 1874. Desperate Remedies was first published in 1871, followed by A Pair of Blue Eyes, 1873, and The Greenwood Tree, 1872. After that, Leslie Stephen serialized in Cornhill magazine his famous novel Far from the Madding Crowd and was very well received. At the same time, he composed The Hand of Ethel Beretta for another magazine. The new novel disappointed many admirers. In 1878 appeared The Return of Native. After it, he started composing his most ambitious novel, So Far the Mayor of Casterbridge. The novel was very well received in England and America. Hardy's fame grew fast. He began work at once upon another serious novel entitled The Woodlander. It was to become his own favorite, though it had many faults. At this stage, his personal relations with his wife became bad. Under very unhappy state of mind, he started the composition of Tess. A great noise was created on the publication of Tess. There was great opposition to it. Anyway, Tess made Hardy famous. It gave him money. In 1893, Emma became unwell. When she had recovered, he started writing Jude the Obscure, which was very much criticized. Hardy decided not to write any more novels. Now he started devoting his time to poetry. In 1912, Emma felt seriously ill and died within a day or two. Hardy remained in his new house at Maxgate, his loneliness increasing. At the age of 70, he received from the king the Order of Merit. In spite of his growing fame, a sense of grief continued to increase in his life. After his wife's death, he called Florence Dugdale to help him in his work. Because of her service, she soon became dear to him. In February 1914, Hardy married her. Florence Dugdale's devotion and her care for him changed his later years. Cambridge had conferred the degree of D.Litt. him in 1913. He continued to compose poetry freely until the end of 1927. He continued to write regularly. His final volumes of poems, Winter Words, had gone to the press. Early in 1928, he died. A nutshell summary of Tess of the D'Urbervilles. John Durbeyfield, a dissolute vagabond, learns that he is descended from the noble family of D'Urbervilles. He and his wife begin to dream of a prosperous future and a brilliant match for their daughter Tess. They press upon her to accept a job as a poultry girl on the farm of a vulgar old lady, D'Urberville. Here Tess meets the young, unprincipled youth Alec D'Urberville, who, after a brief romance, seduces her. The result is a child who soon dies and Tess returns. After some time, Tess accepts a job as a dairy maid on the Talbot's farm. Here, she makes acquaintance with Angel Clare, son of clergyman. They are soon drawn close. But when Angel declares his love, Tess is not able to gather courage to reveal her past. The wedding day approaches. She writes a letter of confession, slips it into the room of Angel, but unfavorably it slips under the carpet. They are married, and when they return from the church, a crowing of cock is heard, which is an omen. After the marriage, Angel tells Tess how he was once involved with a scarlet woman. He asks for her forgiveness, which she soon grants. Then she relates her own transgression, a fault that Angel does not forgive, and leaves her again. She returns home. Tess finds herself in the most difficult circumstances because she has to look after her parents. After a brief period of hunger and despair, she decides to meet Angel's parents, but fails to see them. Once, as she passes by a barn, she hears the voice of Alec, who once again pleads with her to return to him. At first, she refuses, but offer of Alec. She gives her body to Alec, but her soul is still searching there. Who, by now unhappy, is also searching for her. His old anger had died down. His old anger has died down. By the time he is able to see Tess again, she is a degraded woman. So again, with a dejected heart, he starts on his way home. But soon Tess overtakes him over the outskirts of the town and tells Angel that she has killed Alec. But soon Tess overtakes him over the outskirts of the town and tells Angel that she has killed Alec. For he called him Angel by a foul name. Thus, hand in hand, they depart from the scene of their suffering. But their meeting is only short lived. Tess is arrested at the dawn of the day. She is tried and found guilty. She is tried and found guilty and ultimately subjected to the indifferent course of law. Tess of the D'Urbervilles. Tess Derbyfield is the eldest child of the Derbyfield, living in the village of Marfort. John Derbyfield, the father, is a haggler by profession. He is a careless head of the family who loves drinking. John Derbyfield, the mother, is a hard-working lady, always trying her best to see the family happy. The poverty of the family has deprived the children of schooling. Even Tess has been able to reach up to 6th standard. John Derbyfield passes most of his time in drinking in a local inn. Like many other poor Wessex rustics, he too likes to forget drudgery of poverty and consequent worries and anxieties related to their families. One evening in May, the local priest, Parson Tringham, informs John Derbyfield that he is the first descendant of the noble and knightly family of D'Urbervilliers, who once had their seat at Kingsbeer and owned many of the fields around and hills around. One evening in May, local priest Parson Tringham informs John Derbyfield that he is the first descendant of the noble and knightly family of D'Urbervilliers, who once had their seat at Kingsbeer and owned many of the world. Besides this, she revolts to the vicar of her heart, amends, and insists on re-sentenced to death